All right. Well, it's good to see everybody getting logged on this morning. We are up to 168 people enrolled, and we still have room for others that might want to start reading the book and catching up with this program. Always glad to add more, and we'll keep giving people about 3 more minutes here to get logged on today. And try, if you're not one of the guest speakers, we'll try and keep your microphone muted so that others are able to hear. But we'll go ahead and get a poll thrown up today. Some of you may have seen the email that went out, announcing reminder email for this program. So some of you may have a head start on this question. Which character in The Wizard of Oz was wanting courage? Was it the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Lion, Dorothy, Toto the dog, Glinda, that's Glinda the Good Witch, or Miss Gulch, who, of course, ends up being the witch herself. So which character in The Wizard of Oz was wanting courage? And just as a reminder, if you haven't watched that video, that character gives a great speech about the importance of courage. Mm-hmm. He says, "What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? Courage." One of my favorite lines, "What makes the elephant charge his tusk in the misty mist or the dusky dusk? Courage." So, yes, it looks like most people have probably seen that movie and know that when you need a great poem or speech about the importance of courage, you go to the lion in The Wizard of Oz. I mean, he also says, who makes the Hottentot so hot? Courage. What puts the ape in apricot? Courage. I mean, that should really get you fired up this morning. I know when I think of courage, I think of apricots. So great speech from the lion and The Wizard of Oz. Well, good morning and glad you could join us today. We have a guest speaker, guest presenter today. Actually, there's a pretty good sized team now that's involved in presenting this entire program over the course of several more weeks here, several more presentations. So you're getting the benefit of a perspective from several different people. And today's presenter is Dr. Joanna Reed Adams. Dr. Adams is a state extension specialist in community leadership development at the University of Missouri. She is an extension associate professor in the Rural Sociology Department, which is within the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Joanna is recognized both statewide, nationally, and internationally for her experience and work in the area of community leadership. Something that many of you have been involved in are the community leadership programs known as Excel. That is really, Dr. Adams is really the originator of that, developed the curriculum and the original Excel programs that went on across the state of Missouri. So thanks to her for that. I know many of you on this call have benefited or participated in Excel programs. Dr. Adams has a Bachelor of Science in Political Science, a Master's in Public Administration, and a PhD in Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis, and all of those degrees are from the University of Missouri, Columbia. Her primary research is in the field of leadership development. So, Dr. Adams, I will unmute you and hand today's session over to you. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for having me today. I hope everyone's doing well. And I love the lion speech that David gave, and I bet he could really lay it on us a little heavier, thicker if he wanted to. So do I need to share the screen and all that then, or will you do that?
David, you're muted.
You're muted, David. There we go.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Get it shared. There we go.
There we go. And I can move it?
I believe you can, but if you're not, I will just say click and I'll move it for you and keep track here.
Okay. Well, today we're here to talk about and learn about courage from the 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader by John C. Maxwell. So go to the next slide. I have a definition of courage. I did some reading on the topic. There's lots written out there as if you guys want to delve deeper. But I found one quote that I thought did a good job of representing what I think courage is. It's by Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. For myself, I am an optimist. It does not seem to be much use being anything else. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. I especially like that part of it because some of our leaders don't do as good a job at that as we'd like sometimes. Next slide. My little noise there, that's a plane, a biplane sound. This is an example of someone with courage. He had the world speed record, was a World War I flying ace, special advisor to Secretary of War. He survived 22 days on a raft in the Pacific in World War II. And his name is, and you guys all have it on the tip of your tongue, is Eddie Rickenbacker. Next slide. A little bit about Eddie Rickenbacker before we move on to truths about courage is that his favorite quote that his son related in a book that was written about him was, "I'll fight like a wildcat." The author, Maxwell, says that when you look at the life of someone like Eddie Rickenbacker, you cannot help seeing great courage, as we all do. It's easy to see in war heroes, but it's also present in everyday leaders, great leaders too, in business, in government, and of course the church. Whenever you see significant progress in an organization, you know that the leader more likely made courageous decisions, and we're seeing those decisions made every day with the COVID-19 pandemic. A leadership position doesn't give a person courage, but courage can give him or her a leadership position like Captain Rickenbacker. Now I've got a poll for you that David's going to pull up, and I'd appreciate you all taking. So who said courage is doing what you're afraid to do? There can be no courage unless you're scared. Who said that? See how you do. Give you a couple minutes there.
We're up to 60% of participants have voted.
Okay.
That's a great quote.
I think so.
All right, 75% have voted. Want to go ahead and end the poll?
Sure.
We'll end and share those results.
Well, the answer is Eddie Rickenbacker said that. I think that's right.
Yes.
I think that's correct.
I wonder how many people had ever even heard of Eddie Rickenbacker until reading this book.
Well, those who are our age probably have, because he was the ace flyer in World War I, which was even before our time. But some of our younger folks probably haven't heard of him. But he went on to do, and as was written in the book, went on to do a lot of different things, one of which was very involved in the Eastern Airline Company and took it to high levels. So he did a lot of different things in his life. So I encourage you to read more about him if you're interested. Okay, back to the slide, the truths about courage.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Larry Osborne offers this observation. The most striking thing about highly effective leaders is how little they have in common. What one swears by, another warns against, and we've all heard that. But one trait stands out, the willingness to take risk. There's that risk. As you approach the tough decisions that challenge you, recognize these truths about courage. And these are all in your book, so you can get more information on each of these. The first one is courage begins with an inward battle. Every test that we face as a leader begins with us. The test of courage is no different. Courage isn't an absence of fear, it's doing what you are afraid to do. It's having the power to let go of the familiar and forge ahead into new territory. That was true for Rickenbacker, and it can be true for you. The second one, courage is making things right, not just smoothing them over, which we see in real life. Maxwell says great leaders have good people skills and that they can get people to compromise and work together, but they also take a stand when needed. Courage deals with principle, not perception. If you don't have the ability to see when to stand up and the conviction to do it, you'll never be an effective leader. Your dedication to potential must remain stronger than your desire to appease others. A very important statement. The third one, courage in a leader inspires commitment from followers. Billy Graham asserted, courage is contagious. When a brave person takes a stand, the spines of others are stiffened. Jim Mulatto, who is CEO of the Compassion International, explains, leadership is the expression of courage that compels people to do the right thing. And we've heard that phrase before about doing the right thing. 4, your life expands in proportion to your courage. The book that we read states that fear limits a leader. Tacitus, the Roman historian, wrote, the desire for safety stands against every great and noble enterprise. And then British theologian John Henry Newman said, fear not that your life will come to an end, but that it will never have a beginning. Courage not only gives you a good beginning, but it also provides a better future. Very important. Maxwell wrote, what's ironic is that those who don't have the courage to take risk and those who do experience the same amount of fear in life. The only difference is that those who don't take chances worry about trivial things. If you're going to have to overcome your fear and doubts anyway, you might as well make it count. So here we're ready for poll 2. David? How do you tend to handle fear in your life? Do you embrace it? Do you do it by stretching experiences as part of your daily life? Do you retreat so far into your comfort zone that you don't ever even feel fear? So which one of those resonates with you? In general, of course, fear is somewhat situational, but let's see, check the time.
We're at 80%, so I'll go ahead and end that and share
Okay.
those results.
Great. Good.
Yeah.
80% stretching experiences as part of your daily life. That's great. That's a good thing. And embracing it, and some don't even feel the fear. So you want to say something, David?
No, I was gonna say we're probably all getting a lot of practice at being
Yes.
stretched a little bit, trying new
Yes.
things, and always often takes some courage to try something new.
Yes, definitely. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please.
There we go.
Okay. To improve your courage, we should do the following things, according to John C. Maxwell. First of all, we should face the music. And there's a person here doing skydiving, and I'm sure several of you have tried this. I have not, but several of you probably have skydived before. But it's important to go out and do something go out and do something simply for the sake of growing and stretching and courage, like skydiving or speaking in front of an audience, which is the #1 greatest fear people have. Perform in a play, go whitewater rafting, rock climb. It doesn't matter what you do as long as it causes you to face a genuine fear. Okay, next slide. Also, to improve your courage, talk to the person. Most people, me included, are avoiding confrontation with someone in their lives, an employee, a relative, or a coworker. If that's true for you, talk to the person this week. That might be difficult, but this week. Don't dump on them or abuse them. Speak the truth in love. You won't be so afraid to do it if you've already skydived or rafted. So you might not be able to skydive or raft in a week's time before you can talk to the person, but you might have already done that in your past and can pull from that experience. Okay, I have a chat. Let's see here. Okay. All right. And the third one is take a giant step. And we've all been taking a giant step with experiencing this pandemic, changing a lot of things. We've had to have courage and have confronted our fears. But the third one to improve your courage is to take a giant step. Maybe you've been afraid to make a career move. Maybe we've been forced to make a career move in this pandemic. If you've known in your heart that you should have changed jobs perhaps or started that new business, now is the time to face up to it. Take the time to really look at it. Talk to your spouse, a mentor, and a trusted friend or two. If it's the right thing to do, then according to Maxwell, we should do it. Okay, the next slide. So the daily takeaway from this chapter is a courageous act often brings unexpected positive results. And there are many examples of that in history that we want to talk about and share amongst ourselves. So if you'll go to the next slide. Some courageous acts, some examples of courageous people in history and the acts that they committed had unexpected outcomes occur. Think of the fear that they experienced and the unexpected results of their actions. None of these people knew exactly what lay ahead of them when they started out. And the first picture up in the upper left-hand corner is of Christopher Columbus. We all know who Christopher Columbus is, but he was an Italian explorer and who completed 4 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean that opened the New World for conquest. And then below him is Madame Curie, you might recognize. She was a French physicist and chemist who conducted pioneering research on radioactivity. Her experiences in the field led to, among other things, modern day cancer treatments. So she risked her own life literally to do these experiments and find out what we could do with radioactivity that led to lots of different things. In the middle there is a statue of Lewis and Clark, And we all know who they are, being that we're in Missouri. But they were sent on an expedition by none other than Thomas Jefferson to map America to the west, all uncharted territory at the time. They unexpectedly found the Pacific Ocean and mapped the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, lots of other things, recorded local flora and fauna, just to name a few. And then in the yes.
I was going to say, let me heartily
Yes.
recommend the
Then
book.
that book, Undaunted Courage.
Undaunted Courage.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry.
No, it's really remarkable, everything they went through. It was not just a leisurely sightseeing trip. They were lucky to make it there and back.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's by
Ambrose? Stephen Ambrose?
Stephen Ambrose, yes. It is well worth a read. And then the upper right-hand corner is, I'm sure many of you recognize Helen Keller. She's known around the world as a symbol of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet she was much more than a symbol. She was a woman of luminous intelligence. She helped found the ACLU and was a lifelong advocate for the blind and welfare for all, among many other things. And then I couldn't help but kind of put my own courageous hero in there, Neil Armstrong, who was a big deal when I was growing up, because they walked on the moon when I was, 10 years old. Was, of course, the American astronaut and aeronautical engineer and the first person to walk on the moon. And he proved that humankind could do that, could walk on the moon, and impacted many lives in the course of being a naval aviator, a test pilot, and a university professor. So I want you to please share some other examples. These may be people in your own life or people that we might recognize or not in the chat box. Share some other examples and we'll review some of them. Hoot. Oh yeah, great ones. Great, courageous folks.
I'm seeing Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela
Yeah.
listed. I'm not familiar with the first one, Nita.
I'm
not familiar with that name. I have to look that one up.
Yeah.
Here today.
Rosa Parks. I wanted to get her on the list, but I couldn't get her to fit.
Oh, here's another reference to the movie. Tina writes, just saw Hacksaw Ridge for the first time. Desmond Doss's courage was inspiring. That is a remarkable movie and a remarkable story.
Huh, okay.
Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, Little Rock 9, excellent. Yes, and if you read some of their accounts, they definitely had courage.
Well, even people with family members that have been courageous and examples to them facing
yes
medical challenges head on, and
yes,
all excellent.
All has those components of fear, courage, facing the music, and some of talking to people, making major changes in their lives. Oh, of course.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Jesus and oh yes, Dorothy Vaughan, yes. Yes, they definitely had courage, that group of women.
Lots of good examples here. I imagine
yes, we all have many examples. Those are great, and examples of people in our own personal lives and people in the bigger world around us. And we know that our leaders are facing lots of fear and trepidation right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I know our own leaders in our organization are as well, and seem to be showing signs of good leadership so far. So, any other comments?
certainly some of these examples can be an inspiration to us and
Yes.
our own choices that we make, as well as, family members or other friends who may have served as mentors to us, to demonstrate what you can do if you are courageous. It's one of those virtues that's kind of under the radar, but it forms the foundation for so many other qualities that we're talking about in this study.
Yes. Well, the next slide is my contact information. If you have any more you want to discuss, shoot me an email or give me a call, and or if you have any suggestions for improvement or anything, you can call me or shoot me an email. I'm at home.
Let's ask one. I'm going to ask one other
Sure, go right ahead.
question here while we're at it from some supplemental materials that I had. That
Okay.
Maxwell says that courage is expressed in 3 different ways. Which one of these is not the correct ending to this sentence about about the expression of courage? The courage to. 3 of these are examples of courage. One of them is not. Cast your vote on these. Lots of people weighing in. You may have picked up on some of this in the reading that Maxwell shared, and then I'll share an example here as we wrap up our time today. Thank you to those of you that have voted. We'll go ahead and share that. Yes, Maxwell says that there are 3 ways that courage is expressed. The courage to say no. One of his examples is Jim Collins' book about leaders developing a not to do list, things that you're not going to do because it's not in your strength or not best use of your time or your priorities. So the courage to say no. The courage to face reality, to be honest about how things really are, the situation that you really find yourself in, not believing your own publicity all the time, but being honest about that. And the courage to dream, to have big ideas, or even just new ideas, to dream about what things could be or how you could improve. So the majority of you got this correct. The courage to invest money is not one of the courages that he mentions. One of the ways that is expressed. I'll go ahead and end our share, but the only thing and if there's something in the chat, Joanna, that we want to speak upon, we can. Misty Ritter mentions that next week's topic, one of the topics is discernment, and the courage to say no is part of discernment. Mm-hmm. Like you, I love to read. I love history books, and David McCullough is one of my favorite history writers, although I just finished reading The Pioneers, and it was kind of so-so. But one of the books he did write is called The Bridge, which is about the creation of the Brooklyn Bridge over the Hudson in New York. Mm-hmm. And one of the takeaways from that was all the work that went into that bridge that was not visible, under the water line. And he makes a great point to note that there is more of the Brooklyn Bridge below the water line than what is visible above the water line. And, mm-hmm. and another similar example is the Taj Mahal, one of the great wonders of the world. It has remained in place and solid. It's never shifted. And one of the reasons for that is they spent 21 years building the foundation for the Taj Mahal. They actually mined a very specific type of marble that was miles and miles away. I forget how far away, but it was a monumental task to bring it to that site. But they spent 21 years doing that to create a solid foundation. And despite all the earthquakes and things that happened in that region, the Taj Mahal, which is vast, has never shifted, never moved, because it had a solid foundation. And so just in our own lives, the work that you do below the waterline, so to speak, determines where you will stand in the when you're faced in the test of time, or when you're tested by a challenge. It's what makes courage sort of the foundation for all the other virtues. And so I love this quote from C.S. Lewis. He says, "Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at its testing point." So courage is what we need when we're tested, when we have to face the test of time or a challenge, like some of the challenges we're having now. Certainly there's a great need for courage. Then the lion has courage? Yes, absolutely. So anything else on today's topic of courage? We have 3 topics next week, and I have forgotten the topics off the top of my head, but apparently discernment is one of them, and Misty Ritter will be teaching that. We have some great instructors lined up to help flesh out those topics even more, and hopefully you can continue to read each chapter and then have a day to really think about the topic and reflect on it for yourself, and about how you're going to develop that quality more in your own life to help you become the leader that you're meant to be in your community and your neighborhood. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We'll stay around a little bit if you have other questions or comments that you want to make.